So this video is in part an introduction to divination, but at the same time, it also goes for a broader scope pertaining to anytime we get a little bit of information, anytime we learn a little something, and we do not acknowledge we only have a piece of it. If we trick ourselves into thinking we fully understand it, we have the entire grasp, then we are creating somewhat of an illusion, and it becomes very easy to then make assumptions, to form opinions, and to buy in to misconceptions and limiting or fear-based beliefs and ideas, especially those of others that are kind of being passed along. So again, this practice or method of remembering that we don't know, acknowledging we do not know, that it is okay to not know everything. This is all very important with this, particularly. So not just in everyday life, but very much so when we're talking about specific knowledge. If we only grasp or attain a small bit of that knowledge, we have to remember that it's just a piece. It's not the whole. So we're going to specifically be talking about the fear-based and limiting beliefs and ideas that often get passed around, common misconceptions, specifically regarding divination. While practicing divination over the past several years, these things have been more and more noticed. With every basic practice, when we're talking about, let's say for instance, the tarot, the card system, not really that much different than your average playing cards. Very much related to one another. But the tarot system gets a lot of fear-based opinions and beliefs attached to it. There's specific cards that we're talking about, such as the Death card, the Devil, and oftentimes the Tower. These three in particular, these major arcana cards, denote major shifts or archetypes in this journey. But specifically the Devil, because this archetype, this character has been so demonized, has been put into this certain label and defined in a certain way by so many. If we see this image or hear that name, ideas and beliefs are already programmed to respond to the stimuli, to the information. So this is very much about being conscious. We have to raise our conscious awareness. We need to be aware of the reaction, the subconscious beliefs that are already there regarding specific words or images or ideas. And we need to be able to not attach so deeply to those. We need to be more curious about it and allow the knowledge to expand instead of just holding on to this little bit, whether it's distorted or clear or whatever. We want it to expand. We don't want it to just stay the same, hold on to a limited amount when there is such a vast collection. So going back to the devil, or even death, there's a lot of fear from a lot of people being attached to these words, these ideas, these images. And so it gives the entire kind of system a bad rep. We got one bad apple, so the whole tree must be cut down. No, it's not that simple. It's not. I don't think that's the way we need to go about it. We need to be able to look at the broader expanse. We need to be able to learn from it. Not close our minds, not attach to what we think we know, what has been taught us by this or that. So these cards, and we may go into this all deeper, the tarot system and other videos. We're not going to go very deep into it right now. But it's not always what it seems. We look at these images and these words, and we're getting more caught up on what we already think we know, the limiting beliefs. And we mistake that for knowledge, for true knowledge. We're mistaking the memory for true knowledge. So we need to allow the knowledge to expand, not get stuck in our memory, stuck in small ideas. Same goes with astrology. It's another great example, of course, because we're still going to encounter basically the same idea as the devil, just in different names, different forms. Death is still going to be present. It's part of the zodiac wheel. It's part of the cycle of life. So we get things, the sign of Scorpio can seem very unappealing to many people. It is not always thought of as a great sign. There are certain other signs that are associated with things that we do not like, things that we fear. And so we tend to categorize a lot of these things, whether they're planets, signs, the star constellations, whatever they are. We tend to categorize them into things we like, things we don't like, things we fear. And the point is we often fear what we do not understand. So we grasp a little bit of this knowledge, and then it's just so easy. It's almost natural to fear all of the rest. We stare and we look up into the sky at night, and there's just so much out there that we don't understand, so much that we can't even see. We may see 1,000 stars, but there's so much more, the darkness in between. And so there's this innate fear of not knowing. So again, we're brought back to this not knowing and the fear that's connected to it. But it doesn't need to be that way. We can be okay with not knowing. Getting in touch with the inner child definitely helps with that. Getting back into a curious mindset, saying it's okay that I don't know, and maybe I'd like to know, but I don't need to be afraid of not knowing. It's okay. Don't need to be afraid of it. If we are afraid, that's okay too. We don't necessarily want to run from that. We just simply want to acknowledge it so that we can become more curious about even that. Well, okay, so we are afraid. So why? What are we afraid of? What is it really that's got our attention? What is it really that I'm scared of? These are healthy questions to ask ourselves if we are attempting to dive deeper into the depths of fear. Another example that has been come across is within the system of palmistry, hand reading. And a lot of people will start getting interested in this themselves. Maybe they'll look up some of it online. Maybe they'll buy a beginner's book. Maybe they'll go get a reading from somebody. Well, you have to be very careful with this when you first get into it, because depending on who you're learning from, depending on who is reading your hand, you might get all kinds of information. Not just the way that they're presenting it to you, but also the way that we are perceiving it. So it's both a give and take of how the information is being interpreted and presented. Well, again, we'll go likely deeper into palmistry in the future. But for example, I notice people a lot will see either a short lifeline or some kind of issue with the lifeline, and it will automatically bring up a concern, worry, anxiety, and yes, even fear. Because they will either be told that they're going to die at a young age, or they come to the conclusion themselves. But when we're talking about palmistry, it's just really not that cut and dry. We don't one aspect of the hand and say, okay, this is the way it is. It's just not that simple. It's the same with astrology. We don't just look at where one planet is placed and that's a definitive characteristic. That particular relationship is then changed by every other relationship in your birth chart and such. So it's the same with palmistry. It's not all just we look at the lifeline and that tells us everything. We have to look elsewhere in the hand to either verify what we're seeing there, or to, whatever. It might counteract what we're seeing, contradict rather. So we need to go into everything a little bit deeper than just looking at the surface and getting afraid and running away or getting consumed by the fear. We need to be able to look at it, observe it, and not get sucked into it, not attached to it. But we need to be able to observe it and learn from it. So whether we're learning about divination or just life itself, we need to be able to observe and to be curious and allow all of this to expand.